from the break, is now time for us to hit that button where we talk about silent issues making the rounds. And on today's edition, this segment where we're having a very key discussions. We know that looking at the papers this morning, we were told that Tinubu and Shetima's trips and refreshments would go up as much as 9.4 billion naira for the 2025 budgets that is to come, meaning that the presidency will spend 10.6 billion naira on cars, and also for the fuel, SAUs, and other expenditure. But 1.4 billion is quite a huge amount for government expenditure, putting into consideration the economic hardship Nigerians are going through. That has inspired us to look at the topic, the cutting cost of governance, the measures that can be taken, and the benefits that come with cutting cost of governance. And one man who is endeared to us, grooming leadership and installing great leadership, is no other person but Ben Alika, who is the global president of the Global Leadership Commission. Is joining us via Zoom this morning to help us look at how best the federal government, this sub-national level, talking about the state governors, and in deep analysis also putting into consideration the local government level of governance, to how these three tiers of government can cut the cost of governance, the measures that can be taken, and the benefit that would come to us as a people and as a nation. I want to say good morning to you, Ben Alika, and sorry for the mix-up in the time frame, but we're glad to have you join us on Global Morning.
Yeah, good morning, Tony. My pleasure. As always, thank you for having me. Thank you, Nigerians.
All right, as a global leadership expert who has over the years helped groom a lot of leaders, and also help those in leadership position to get the right norms in leading an entity, a society, a government. What would be your holistic analysis of leadership, this present day leadership we've got in the country, before we delve into cutting the cost of governance? First of all, how would you describe the kind of leaders we have and the style of leadership?
That's interesting. Well, that's an interesting question to ask. It's a paradox, actually. But let me say this. In terms of leadership and governance, humans generally do not necessarily act involuntarily, right?
Okay.
The actions of humans, people can be impulsive, instinctive, but when it comes to leadership, a leader doesn't just happen into an office, if you know what I mean. All right? It's always a process. Now, every leader is a product of his self-constitution. All right? Now, self-constitution in terms of what defines his character, his personality, his convictions, his motivations, his priorities, an idea of life generally, his outlook, his perceptions. Okay, so in that wise, you see that the action of a leader at every point in time is inevitably the consequences of who he is, in terms of his journeys of life, in terms of what defines his person, his personality, and his philosophies and ideals. All right, and the more important, how he perceives leadership, responsibilities of leadership. All right, what defines his priorities now, and how he approaches the whole idea of governance. Now, for someone who is philosophically driven, who is visionary, who is result driven, and based on his sense of relationship with the nation and the citizens. All right. Now, if it's a person who is driven by a sense of farsightedness, vision, and purpose, now typically how he approaches the issue of spendings, for instance, public spending, his relationship with public treasury, will typically, be determined by how he relates with those visions and purposes. Now, for instance, I watched a video recently by one of these top Indian officials in government, and so he was reeling out. Apparently, he was addressing, I think, the Parliament of India, and so he was giving a breakdown of what they have achieved the last 10 years. It was staggering. Now, one of the things he said was his introduction, that the success so far recorded within the 10-year period of their government cannot be said to be a coincidence. He said it was the result of strategic growth plan that was meticulously, defined and implemented within this period. And when now, first he talks about the 4 pillars of the growth action plan that they came up with from the beginning, and then how they implemented it, and then importantly the results that have been achieved. It was staggering. One of the, I can't remember everything, but one of the things that he said was that within this period of 10 years, they have lifted up 250 million Indians out of poverty. And I'm sure those figures are verifiable. 250 million Indians out of poverty. So in that context, you can't be talking about cutting cost of governance. You can't be talking about frivolities. You can't be talking about, frivolous spendings. No, because there's a vision, there's a purpose, is a result-driven governance. So every fund that can be laid hold of will be mobilized for that purpose, because they had already benchmarked what will be the accomplishment within that specific period of time and in the context of those strategies and vision that they have developed. So that is the whole idea of leadership. That's the whole concept of leadership. Strategic thinking and planning. All right. So if you look at where we are right now today, a lot of issues are at stake. Now, before you come in, let me just say this quickly. If you look at the kind of politicians we have today and what we have experienced at least the last 1 year of this government, and specifically to the budget you mentioned, I've not gone through the budget, so I don't know specifics, but at least I heard one of the figures you just mentioned and for what reason. And so you can understand, what the priority of the government is, okay, and the character of the leadership that we have, not just at the presidential level, at the federal level, but at all of other levels. So please go ahead.
All right. Looking at the fact that 9.4 billion naira is going to be expended on refreshment alone in a budget of 49.7 trillion, and we've got 9.4 billion for refreshment alone earmarked for next year. And also putting into consideration that I think this year 2024 billions were expended in the refurbishing of the vice president's accommodation, which currently, from records and information reaching us, he does not dwell in. Does this give us an idea, like you rightly put it, the mindset of our leaders, and if these leaders can achieve half of what was achieved in India, and what now zeroing into how best we can, cut cost of governance, and is it achievable?
Like I said, why? Cutting cost of governance is achievable, but it is a question of, like we said, the nature and character of the leaders, and then what their priorities are, okay, as it were. Now, don't forget that it's not just a question of measures to cut cost of governance, or that whether there is a need for us to cut the cost of governance. Now, depending also on the kind of the cost we're talking about, right? Now, the last 10, 15 years of our history in this country, it's been on record that over 70% of our national budget goes on recurrent expenditure, right? So the frivolities has always been there, but it's gone worse, no doubt about that, the last few years. Okay, but what is fundamental here, I want us to know, is that it is not a rocket science, okay, and it is not an impossible thing to do. But if you look at the circumstances, all right, you realize that's why I said that nothing happens by chance, all right. So it's a matter of who is involved. If you look at the cost of politics over the years, for a governor, for someone to become a governor of a state in Nigeria today, you'll be spending not less than 150 billion to 200 billion, if not more, to become a governor for 4 years. And then much more than that to retain that office for another 4 years. The same, the level at governorship, gubernatorial level or governorship level, you can talk about such staggering amount of money. Now, so talk about what it will be like at the federal level, at the presidential level. All right. Now, such investment, who invests that to serve a people for 4 years? What is the motive? What's the priority? Now, where does that money come from? Now, they've already started planning for 2027 elections. This money, nobody goes into the tilt and just collect cash. No, it must come through the budgetary process, the paddings and all of that. We know these things. So the focus, tragically, is not the priority of development, of accomplishing goals and results as it is, but it's so much about having to be able to recoup what you have spent or to accumulate in order to be able to come back or stay in power. And then much more than that, we are also in, like I said, if you remember the last time I was with you, I spoke about the dangers and the challenges of our own type of free market enterprise we are practicing based on spirit of liberalism. Now, there's the corrupting influence I see in that principle. First and foremost, it tends to cause leadership to lose focus. And apart from that, there is also the new quest for not just power, but economic power and money. Because there's now a shift towards individualism, okay, and individual fiefdoms, which is now giving birth to some kind of oligarchic system, especially for those who are able to grab political power. Now, so we see some kind of partnership between political elite and the economic elite. And the idea again is you see a shift towards plunder of nations, state captures and all of that. Now, for you to achieve that, there is a need to accumulate resources, money. Because it's about economic power as the very basis of conquest, control, and domination of people and society. So it's much more than just saying, oh, government should cut costs. The underlying principles are what we must focus on. So what's the whole idea of having to impoverish the nation and then acquire the fund for yourself? I mean, like I said, it's not a rocket science that you know that when you cut the cost of governance, it will immediately translate to enough funds saved to invest in public investment, public infrastructure, social investment, in education, health, agriculture, and the rest of them. And so what you're going to see is a stimulation of economic growth. Because where there is strategic government investment, you see the result. It will naturally translate not just to good governance, but to results in terms of development, infrastructural development, social development, technological development, and so on and so forth. All right, and then so you see economic growth. You see the currency of the country now appreciating in value, and then you see that translating to quality of life of the citizens. All right, and that also translates to having savings in terms of our national reserve, which also affects our trade balance or trade profile in terms of balance. Then also that also helps us in terms of good governance by way of ratings internationally that now boosts investors' confidence and attract investors to your country. So many things happen when we are prudent with resources. The resources would have wasted in entertainment, in refurbishing cars every year, or buying new cars every year, buying, building new houses, or refurbishing houses every year. Now you divert that to the productive sector, to manufacturing, to social investment, to infrastructure, redevelopment. Then typically there will be progress, and that will reduce insecurity, that will reduce prices, that will reduce poverty, that will reduce unemployment. So it is a win-win thing. But when you have a leadership that is typically so distracted, or whose priority is not in this area, then you realize that we're done for. Because what we're dealing with here, cost of governance, my brother, is at the core of the survival of a nation. It's a question of whether we survive or we die as a people. That's the truth. When you have a leadership or government that is not focused on development, but on spending, especially at a time when the economy is in chaos or in crisis. Yesterday I went out, or day before yesterday I went out to buy fruit from this woman that I used to buy fruit from. And you could see that as they brought their things from morning, that is how it was till evening, he said they couldn't sell. The prices are high, there's no incomes are low, so people are not buying. And they are there. Night was coming. The last 3 weeks again, I was there. And when I looked at their faces, you could see the gloom. And I said, what's wrong? They said they've not eaten.
Welcome back. What did you say for that quick break? We had to go to sort some quick, technical hitch. I got you, Benalika, who is the President CEO of a Global Leadership Commission, still joining us via Zoom. All right, as we wrap up the conversation, what would be the solutions to these issues you've raised this morning, key of them being the type of leaders that will give the opportunity to lead the country? And do the citizens really have much choice as to the leaders that emerge, knowing fully well that there's been a lot of issues as regards the processes that produce these leaders?
Well, that is the real issue. In terms of solutions, I don't see any immediate solution. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. All right, good. Now, first, let me say this clearly. I want to be very sincere about this. There is no immediate solution. There is no immediate solution because, like I said, it boils down to the personality of those who are governing, all right, and what their focus is. Now, the important thing for us to realize is this: as a nation, things must always run its course. There is always this principle of seed time and harvest. So what we are experiencing is the harvest of our decision. All right. Now, over the years, Nigerians have had this predisposition or tendency towards now the decision of Nigerians. All right. Okay. To say, you know what, we have made mistakes. This time around, our consideration for choosing leaders must be totally and radically different. Okay. So now that is the choice of the Nigerian people. But more fundamentally, is that we are a nation that requires total overhauling. The foundations are fundamentally wrong, and that is what we're saying. This is a nation that is so divided, okay, against itself, and constituted on the basis of individual interests, group interests, tribal interests, religious interests. So far, what defines nationhood, critical factors of nationhood, have not been put in place. And that is why Nigeria is a nation waiting to be born. So what we need right now is moral revolution, spiritual revolution, social revolution that will create that organic basis of our shared sense of destiny, meaning, and purpose. That is one aspect. The second aspect is that there must be a considerable, project of citizens' enlightenment. What we have here is darkness. I can tell you that. Darkness in the sense of ignorance as to what defines nation and leadership. All right, the existential purpose of nation. The average Nigerian doesn't have it. Now, other part of it is that we do not have true citizens who are ready to subordinate their interest to the interest of the nation. Okay, and until you have that kind of citizens, it is almost going to be impossible, to be able to choose leaders who will lead us, aright. And then also the state capture, that we have seen, through democratic process the last few years. Okay, now if you consider what happened in Ghana this last election, just look at what happened. Those guys proved to the world that they were in charge, that power resides with the citizens. They were unanimous, they were united, in their decision to change their government. They were not driven by the kind of primordial and primitive, instinctive approach to issues, especially politics, as we do in Nigeria here. All right. So those are the kind of things we must begin to focus on, because the fundamentals are wrong. And so if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? The only thing the righteous can do is to build a new nation. Now, right now, we must recognize that the nation requires total and general overhauling. We need a new nation, and that is what we must begin to focus on. The institutions, like we said some time ago, is that the institutions are no longer even responsive, to those requisites that will promote leadership of good governance, or result-oriented, governance in this country as it is right now. The institutions have been so distracted, and even the public officials themselves, like I keep saying, seem to be losing trust and faith in the nation itself. Most of them do not believe in Nigeria. All right. So we need general overhauling, and then the citizens themselves. Nigerians need total and complete, reconstruction, redefining our own architecture in terms of our thinking, our perspectives, and our orientation. Nigerians need to be re-civilized. I tell you the truth, because our thinking, our aspirations are so low to produce the kind of nation that we desire, and that is where the journey has to start. And again, we pray, as we always do, that God will give, especially those who genuinely desire change, the requisite courage, and character, to become more relentless, and strategic in their thinking and in their approach to seeking for change and to seeking for transformation of the country. So that is for me the suggestions I will make within the time frame that we have. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm just tempted to wanted to ask you, these agents of change, which you're one of them, and several groups and bodies and individuals who want a new Nigeria, versus those who have been neck deep in these old ways of life and doing things. How do you think you can win this battle? against the old guard and changing this narrative. Do you think it's going to be an easy ride? Especially, we talked about this leadership and leaders that emerged. One of my key worries is that the system does not allow the good leaders to emerge.
Yeah. See, the truth about this is this. There's always this saying I have, that if you want to confront established powers, you must change the rules. You see, David came against Goliath. Okay? I mean, we know that biblical story. Now, 40 years, 40 days, 40 nights, Goliath challenged the army of Israel, including the king, the Saul. And those guys could not rise up to him until a young man came, David. And then David changed the rules of the game that Goliath has set. There are rules of games. The established powers understood this, and they understand that. They have set the template of running politics, okay? And that's the mistake, for instance, the obedient movement, I believe they made. Because when they were saying, hey, you don't have the structure, they didn't understand what was being said. That there are people who control territories. I mean, yesterday I took a walk around my area. I won't call the area. But when I walked around and I saw buildings, boy, you know that there are established powers and that will never allow the alteration of the status quo. So the only way we're going to do that is that you must study, master the establishment. All right, understand how it works, okay, and then you now look at their point of vulnerability. That's one. Secondly, you must come up with a superior strategy, not just strategy, vision and purpose that will focus on the citizenry. Because what is the population of these people we're talking about, right? So mobilize the people, all right. Also, it's not also a question of we versus them, really, because at the end of the day, you know, with the nation is in chaos.
All right.
I mean, okay, so it's going to affect everyone. So our ability to engage everyone's consciousness, mindset, and intelligence to say, look, this is not sustainable, but more importantly, focus on the people.
All right.
And re-engineer. Yeah, because if the
all right, thank you very much for the want of time and also the issues at hand. I want to say a big thank you to Ben Andike. It was a pleasure having him join in the national discourse in terms of leadership question. Thank you very much, and that's how much our time is going to allow us to take, and hopefully in the coming days we'll explore on this talking point. He is the CEO of Global Leadership Commission, and he's doing great things for Nigeria and the African continent and also on the global surface. Thank you very much for joining us.